Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about all of the books that I plan on prioritizing while I am out on my leave from work for having my baby. So if you don't already know, I am in my third trimester of my pregnancy and I am constantly out of breath. So if I sound like I just ran a marathon, please excuse that. Basically, I am pretty close now to the official due date, and I'm starting to think about kind of what I want to be reading when the time comes and I have my baby girl. And you know, I'm a first-time mom. I have no idea what to expect with how truly busy I'm going to be and how tired I'm going to be. So I'm not pressuring myself to necessarily read a whole lot if I'm not feeling up to it. But if I do feel up to it, I figured I could pick out a list of books that I really want to prioritize during that time. And what I'm thinking for the genre that I'm going to be reading the most of is probably young adult fantasy. The reason being, I think that young adult fantasy will be easier for me to read out loud. So while I'm holding the baby girl or wanting to read out loud to her, I feel like YA fantasy is a little less dense than like a big adult fantasy book, a little easier to get through, a little more to the point. And then I love fantasy books. I think that they're a great escape. For that reason, I'm really in that YA fantasy mood. And I think it's going to be the best for just a quick, easy escape. It's not something that I feel like, you know, I can't put down and come back to later on down the road if, you know, I'm just too busy at the time. So let's talk about the list of 10 books that I'm going to be prioritizing. First off, there's a couple of sequels that I know I want to get to. The first being Heart of Flames by Nicki Pau-Preto. This has been on my list for a long time to get to. I read Crown of Feathers last year and I thought it was pretty good. It was definitely an intriguing ending that made me very, very excited for the next book because of a different perspective that we got at the very end that we didn't necessarily get throughout the rest of the book, and that particular perspective at the end was my favorite. And I heard that this is much more from her perspective in this book, so I'm really excited to get to this. It's just really big so I've kept putting it off, but I think I can finally hopefully find the time to get to it. The next book I have is, of course, Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. I read King of Scars last year, and I feel like I'm in the minority opinion on this, but I really liked King of Scars. I had a blast with that book. Zoya was like a standout character. I remember not loving her as much from the original Grisha trilogy, but then when I read King of Scars, I absolutely adored her. And Nina's story is in this, and she's fantastic. And then Nikolai, of course, was a blast, and I loved the cliffhanger at the end. I feel like it's very, very hate or love people's feelings on the ending of King of Scars, and I am definitely in the loved it camp, so I'm personally very excited for Rule of Wolves, but I know a lot of people weren't as big of a fan of this continuation of the Grisha trilogy, so hopefully I still really end up enjoying it. And then the last sequel I'd love to get to is A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Brigid Kemmerer. I loved A Curse So Dark and Lonely. It's that Beauty and the Beast retelling. It was filled with characters who were so much fun to follow. I loved the romance. I loved the sass in the book. If you don't know, it's about this girl named Harper who basically finds herself going from our real world into this fantasy world, and it's kind of that classic Beauty and the Beast trope where we have a prince who is cursed and only she can break the curse with true love. But what's really fun about the book is her interacting with this fantasy world coming from our world. It was a blast. The second book I was not as big of a fan of, unfortunately. It just follows some new characters that I didn't like nearly as much as the characters from the first book, but I've heard that this book kind of combines both set of characters, so I am curious to see how it ends. I've just really been enjoying this particular world a lot, so excited to finally be finishing off this trilogy. And then I've got a couple of new series or standalone books that I've just had on my shelf for a really long time at this point and really would like to read soon. These are all, again, young adult, except for one. So let's just go through them now. First is Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. This was on my must-read list of last year and I didn't get to it, so I'd really like to get to it this year. I know that this is superheroes. I love superhero stories. I've heard that this is some people's least favorite Sanderson. Some people really enjoy this one, so I'm curious to see where I end up on my feelings with Steelheart, but regardless, I know I definitely want to read all the Sanderson eventually, so Steelheart will be the next one. Nevermoor by Jessica Townsend, The Trials of Morrigan Crow. This is a middle grade that I know is so popular, so beloved, and I feel like this is a really fun one to maybe read out loud to my baby girl. So I definitely can see myself being in the mood for a middle grade, just being in the mood for a whimsical adventure. I really like those types of stories, and I'm curious to see how I like this author's writing style, and hopefully it lives up to the hype. The next is Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa, which is the first in a trilogy. Oh goodness, I forget the name of the trilogy. I'll put it right here. This one is a Japanese-inspired fantasy, which I love. I love this cover so much. Anything Japanese inspired, I'm definitely going to pick up. That's a buzzword for me. I used to live in Japan, so I love Japan so much. So I'm really excited to get to this one. I know Elle over at Elliot Brooks, she loves this series, so I'm really excited to check it out and hopefully love it. Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. This was one of my most anticipated from last year and I just haven't gotten around to reading it yet, but I'm really excited to. I've heard it's very cool world building, very cool characters. I'm really excited, and this cover, I know that it looks like some 70s psychedelic adventure and I love the aesthetic, so I'm really excited to check this one out. More Than This by Patrick Ness. So I've had this on my shelf for probably a little under a year now and I just have not gotten to it yet. I'm really wanting to check it out because I love the Chaos Walking trilogy by Patrick Ness. It's one of my favorites. I also loved A Monster Calls. It's that, oh, that book made me cry so much, so I've been really wanting to check out more Patrick Ness. I know that this is more of a like contemporary sci-fi book, and it has to do with a character who dies, but they are kind of in this like purgatory state, or it explores like the afterlife. I love those kinds of books. I'm hoping that this one is a really like heartwarming yet powerful type of contemporary fantasy / sci-fi book, so I'm really excited to check it out. And this cover is so cool. Look at the little door. Isn't that fun? It's so fun. And then of course I feel like I have to have this on the list because all my friends love it. Fireborne by Rosaria Munda. I have been wanting to read this ever since Elle has just shouted from the rooftops about it, how much she loves this book, how wonderful it is. I know it's one of her favorites, so I've been wanting to check it out since she's been promoting it on her channel. And I mean, since then, so many other people have picked it up and loved it. I know Jessie from the Bookish Mom loved it. I know Alan from the Library of Allenxandria loved it. So I'm just super excited to finally be getting into this book, especially since the sequel just came out. I feel like if I love it, I can just go ahead and binge the sequel. So that makes me excited. But I can't wait. This is definitely one of my most anticipated books that I want to read on my shelf. And then the last book that I have is the only one that's not young adult on this list, but I still feel like it would be like an easy read, a fun time, and that's Mort by Terry Pratchett, which would be my first foray into Discworld. And I know that Alan loves Discworld. He is the king of Discworld. I will link his Discworld reading order video down below if you yourself are interested in starting Discworld and don't really know where to start. So I'm starting with Mort just because I know that it is the first book in the Death collection, and Mort as a character sounds like something I would love. It is apparently this like Grim Reaper that is this apprentice or this assistant to Death, and he like doesn't want to do the job anymore. He just wants to do other stuff, and it's apparently just very, very funny, very witty. I've heard that the humor in these books are very similar to like Monty Python humor, which I adore. So I just feel like I'm going to love Discworld, and I just need to start it. So this is definitely on the list when I just need something quick, easy, fun that will make me laugh. So that is it. These are the 10 books that I'm hoping to prioritize that have been on my shelf for a while and I've just been needing to get to. Did you see any on this list that you're particularly excited for or that you've read and loved? Definitely let me know in the comments down below. I love hearing from you guys. I'm so sorry that my uploads have been so sporadic, but just being in the third trimester, it's been a journey. It's been a lot to sit down and film. So hopefully I'll get back in a groove soon. I appreciate you all sticking with me and understanding. You all are fantastic. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!